Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. I hope you guys are all having a fantastic Monday. Today we are starting a brand new series. This is a buyer's guide to getting your first Crested Gecko. Now I haven't really done anything like this in the past and I figured it was time. Someone brought it to my attention that a lot of my videos are geared towards people who already own geckos, and I've touched on it in the past, some beginner tips and tricks and stuff like that, but I haven't really made a video seriously dedicated to it. So if you're someone who's considering buying a gecko, this series is definitely for you. This video is going to be some of the background information and history of crested geckos. Next video is going to be about the care of crested geckos. The video after that is going to be about morphs and colors of crested geckos. And then the final video in this series is going to be about buying, going through the shipping process, and what you can expect after you get your gecko. After you watch these 4 videos, you should be an expert and you should be ready to get your first crested gecko. And after that, I'm going to do another little series about breeding, taking care of the babies, shipping, and selling your geckos. But if you're a beginner, you don't got to worry about that. But that's just something to keep on your radar. But anyway, let's jump right into this video. And before you get too far in this series, you may be wondering, Sam, should I even watch these videos? You know, is a crested gecko right for me? And we're not going to really talk about care in this video, that's next video, but just in general, I've owned quite a few different reptiles. Crested geckos are by far one of the best beginner reptiles you can own. When it comes to all sorts of different categories, I mean, their care is simple, their maintenance is simple, getting them is pretty easy, you know, they're not hard to find. The price of maintaining them is also very inexpensive, and purchasing the animal themselves is very inexpensive. They're great for beginners due to their size and their temperament. So just in general, crested geckos are a very good beginner pet. This video is kind of geared towards someone who's already kind of decided they wanted a crested gecko. They just aren't sure how to go about it and they maybe need some more information about it. But just in general, crested geckos do make great first pets. But let's jump into some of the history and the background information here. So starting off, where crested geckos originally come from, they come from the island of New Caledonia. A lot of you probably knew this. This island is off the coast of Australia. It's not a very big island when you look at Australia compared to New Caledonia, but you know, that doesn't matter. These geckos are forest dwellers, and if you want to see exactly what their habitat looks like, Dave Kaufman, another reptile YouTuber, actually made a video going to New Caledonia back in 2018 and looking at some crested geckos in the wild and their natural habitat. That video is wonderful. If you haven't already seen it, there will be a link down below in the description. You can kind of take a peek at what their habitat looks like. But just in general, their habitat is more forest. They're going to be lower to the ground, lots of sticks, lots of leaves, that kind of thing, in a more tropical climate. Now, one of the craziest things about crested geckos is they're actually thought to be extinct until 1994, which is only 26 years ago. That may seem like a long time, but in the pet trade, they're one of the most popular geckos to own. And, you know, there's thousands of them living in captivity now. I think that's one of the most craziest things you can know about crested geckos is that 26 years ago, they were thought to be extinct. Now, I bet there's over 100,000, you know, crested geckos living in captivity, which is just insane. If you think about it, you and me can own one of these animals that was extinct not even 30 years ago. Now, in captivity, obviously, they're doing well. In the wild, however, it's a little bit different. They are considered vulnerable status, which means that their populations are declining due to things like mining, deforestation, and invasive species. So in the wild, they're not doing as good, but in captivity, obviously, you know, they're doing great and got a lot of them. If it wasn't obvious as to where they got their name from, crested geckos obviously have all these really beautiful eyelashes. They're also called eyelash geckos for a reason. They have all these crests by their eyes and running down their back, and that's where they got their name from. Now, as far as size goes, crested geckos generally reach 6 to 10 inches from the snout to their tail, which for geckos is pretty big, but for reptiles in general, obviously, that's pretty small. I mean, like compared to like something like a ball python, it's, you know, not the same really, but they also weigh roughly 35 to 60 grams depending on genetics and gender. You know, you're going to get some smaller males that are closer to that 35 range, and you're going to get some big females that are closer to that 60 gram range. Obviously, there's outliers on either side of this. You know, you get big males, big females, small females, But in general, an adult crested gecko is going to be between 35 and 60 grams normally. So if you're buying an adult, that's something to be on the lookout for. Now, oddly enough, crested geckos have no eyelids, so to keep them clean, they need to lick them. So on occasion, you may catch them licking them. It also keeps them moist. So if you own a gecko for any amount of time, you'll definitely see this happening, so don't be frightened. They just don't have any eyelids, so they got to clean them somehow. Now let's talk tails for a second. Crested geckos have a semi-prehensile tail, meaning that they have a little pad at the end that they can grip and kind of hold on to stuff with, which is pretty cool. But another thing that their tails do is fall off. Now, not all the time, but they can drop their tails pretty much at any time for any reason. However, generally speaking, they aren't going to just randomly drop their tails, although it does happen. But you're more likely to have a tail drop after something like a big firework or a thunderclap goes off. Generally, it happens when they get spooked out of nowhere, and suddenly they'll just drop their tail. And unfortunately, in crested geckos, their tails do not grow back. But this doesn't hurt the gecko in any way, shape, or form, and they get a little nub, and a lot of people like to call them frog butts. So if your crested gecko does drop its tail, don't be worried. It's just one of their natural defense mechanisms that they would do in the wild. And 99.9% of crested geckos in the wild don't have tails, so obviously it's not a bad thing. You don't really have to worry about it. It's just something that can happen. But that's going to pretty much sum up our brief history of crested geckos. These are all the big points and things I thought you should know. Next video, we're going to be talking about the care of crested geckos, so you're not going to want to miss that. I think probably the care is the biggest determining factor in whether or not you should get a crested gecko or not. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. But if this video did help you out and you enjoyed it, please leave a like down below. I would really appreciate it. And I hope to see you guys in my next video.